We are proud to present this year's winning speech to you from someone who has worked tirelessly to help our chapter come out on top. Please give a round of applause to our chapter president, Miguel Martinez.
Good evening. Today I will discuss the effects of technology, the pace of change through technology. But specifically, I will address 20 years from where we started. I will bring it current and discuss the perils of our current state of technology. And I will shed a little light on what's to come. Albert Einstein once said, "It has become appallingly obvious that our technology pretty much has exceeded our humanity." Through extensive research for myself, and being an avid technology user of various types, obviously, in school and homework and so forth, I've had the chance to really get in depth of where we've come from, where we are currently, and where we're going. At some point, all of us, whether prepared or not, has had to kind of experience the technological gap and divide, even if it was having to learn something very quickly, and most of us are kind of still in that transition. We can reflect back and think of this transition if we remember back to the beeper, and how the beeper translated into the cellular phone, and then how the cellular phone translated into the smartphone. Now, by show of hands, how many of you still have a beeper? How many of you have a smartphone? Exactly. And most of you in front that can't turn around, that actually shows a big glimpse into this particular presentation, because smartphone has almost become a prerequisite, like electricity and water in most of our houses. So first, let's regress back 20 years. In 1990, if we look at this was the debut of the World Wide Web. The first Pentium PC was developed in 1993. When this first Pentium PC was established, it finally gave us a chance to be able to record photographic images. It had the first real-world processor. It recorded handwriting, and companies was able to do graphics more so than they ever had. By year 2000, let's say 10 years later, the PowerBook Mac 4 G4 Power MacBook was created. Now this time, this was initially the world's fastest processor. And if you know anything about computers, if you think back during this time, everybody wanted to Mac. Everybody wanted the G4 computer. Everyone wanted to be a graphic designer or video editor. This was the new age of advanced technology. But if we move this forward and look at 2010, which is very clear to most of us, we had the MacBook Pro. During the MacBook Pro, the iPad first released. And during the release of the iPad, before the iPad ever even hit the market, there was 14.4 million pre-sales on an iPad. The world had never even seen an iPad. Now, I'm not sure what the demographic or the statistic is, but the users that actually purchased textbooks or still had library cards and so forth, 14.4 million people purchased an iPad but didn't even know its capability. That tells you that the mind is being trained to adapt to technological advances. But in contrast to this technological power, perils surely have developed as a result. And that's what I'll discuss right now. Let's talk about the perils of social network, something we all pretty much figure we need to survive. The average user spends 55 minutes per day on a social network. That's 335 hours per year per user. That does not include the time that we check emails, it does not include the time that we're doing really hard academic work related. That's just social network. And that's just a general number across the board. 73% of teens belong to a social network, at least one. How many of those teens belong to a local library? Again, I don't know that statistic, but as parents, it is important to look at these statistics because these are real. Let's talk more about perils of those teens, of those 73% of teens that are now involved in at least one social networking site. Let's talk about a 15-year-old. He was grounded on MySpace. I guess he didn't do too well in school and his father grounded him. Well, that particular night, he went and got a shot round and blew his head off. Why? Because he couldn't use MySpace. This is not fabricated, this is real life. Let's talk about this husband. This husband saw his wife on Facebook, and she changed her status from married to single, and he killed her. This is it's just social network. Just a status. What if it was an accident? There was a Facebook love triangle where some teens, of course, were checking each other's mind with each other's statuses, and then one followed the other, followed each other after school, and one led to another, and it was a three-way triangle death. They died on highways. And these are just, this is 1% of a ton of stuff that I found, and I couldn't believe that this is what social networking has done to us in our current state, especially to our kids. But it's not just social networking that has occurred. What about education? It is said that virtual communication hinders real life communication. We spend most of our time on text because we can respond slowly and adapt. But what happens when you take us and put us into a job interview situation where we have to look the boss directly in the eye and we have to communicate back and forth? That hinders that. Research shows that technology can improve the development in some ways, but diminish the inability to react in the real world. While you're really good, again, speaking via text message, it hinders many things. English, because you're so used to using short codes and acronyms and so forth that, you can't get an interview and just quote LOL and all of this stuff. It really doesn't work like that. But what about reduction in reasoning and attention span? That diminishes the ability to concentrate on a single point for a long time. What does that mean? That means that when you're on your cell phone, when you're on your laptop, and you're consistently doing this, that when you put yourself in, let's say, a lecture-based setting, or a setting similar to this, you can't concentrate for too long. So what does that do to the educational system? Wouldn't that have an adverse effect on the education system? If technology keeps us from being able to focus on a point, well, maybe that's why America's education system is depleting. And I'm no expert on that, but it makes a lot of sense if we just look at something so simple. What about family? The perils definitely affects family, and probably more ways than it does education and social networking. Statistics show that it hurts marriages. Technology. Why? It leads to infidelity, soft cheating, and flirting. I poked somebody today on Facebook, so I feel strong, or it's sneaky. But that's the type of stuff that happens. Now, although you can hear, 1 out of every 5 marriages, although this is not covered in my speech, but it exists. 1 out of every 5 marriages are established online. Now, that's some positive aspects of it, yes. But if the online flirting and communication, finding a different way to reach out and communicate and touch people, per se, didn't exist, that statistic wouldn't exist either. Children communicate more effectively on social networks than they do in their own home. Today's traditional family is much different than I'm sure many was years ago. And I'm sure that has a lot of different factors. There are single family homes a lot this time, during these times. And, whether it be mother or the father, they have to take on a couple of jobs and send children to school. So children are self-raising themselves via the internet and so forth. So the only way that they can effectively communicate is via technology. Parents, this is going to raise a tough spot for most parents. There are many parents that use iPads and technology and gadgets and phones as babysitters. Child makes a lot of noise, doesn't want to listen to the parent slides on the cell phone, child's quiet. Well, if that's a quick fix for you, the next time that you don't want to get embarrassed, you almost accidentally slide the phone. Well, then the child develops some type of cognitive ability to say, I know if I act like this, I can get this gadget. And then what? And then I'm sure that's a whole other speech. But now, technology manufacturers are catering these apps and these colors and these smartphones to appeal to the child's eye. What about exploring dependency? And with this, I'll give you an example of my father and my mother one day in the backyard. When I was preparing for this speech for regionals, I asked a question. My father asked, what are you doing in speech? And I explained to him, and he said, yeah, well, I know about technology, I got an iPod. I said, actually, I did my speech for people just like you. So I said, let me give you an example. I said, what's my cell phone? And he said, give me a second. I said, no, not in the cell phone. What's my cell phone number right here? So he gave me the first 3, 757, and couldn't do them. I said, better yet, I'll make one easier for you. His wife was sitting right there. And I said, what's your wife's cell phone? Now, might I add, my father is a retired general of special forces, and has a degree very, very strong and powerful man. But at this moment, it didn't help. And the only number that he knew, I'm sure, on the look off her face, was 911. Because I think she was a little dissatisfied that he didn't know, and she said, I know your phone number. And immediately, as smart as he was, he began to listen. He said, you have a valid point. And when we're dependent upon cell phones and technologies, how many of our family members do we actually know? We depend on technology for calendars to remind us, alarms to wake us up, important dates, remembering phone numbers, and so forth. That's actually a really bad thing, considering what I just heard on the news was amazing about the solar flare. Now, mind you, my academic major is international business, so I'm far from a conspiracy theorist or science. But when I heard this solar flare touch home, what they said was that this solar flare hits the United States, hits Earth, right? What's going to happen? It's going to wipe out all the technological communication. I'm not sure for a period of time of what. But let me ask you a question. Think about this. If it knocks out all communication, we actually go into a state of emergency. If we go into a state of emergency, they shut down roadblocks. If they shut down roadblocks, what if your children are just getting out of school and they're expecting for you to pick them up? What if your husband is waiting at the airport, or spouse, and so forth? What happens then? No one knows. Colleges and local schools don't even have an evacuation plan if technology failure hit. Everyone wants to worry about atomic bombs. A real terrorist threat is just to knock out our satellite. Can't communicate, then what? But with that said, you have to wonder from where it came and where we currently are, where is this going? And this is where I'll close. It boils down to organic versus artificial intelligence. What does that mean? Organic intelligence is the ability for the scientists and these engineers to come up with this intelligence, the ones that are very, very creative and they create these things, which is brilliance. But what happens with artificial intelligence? One of the things that most people don't really care to hear about technology, and I was one of them before I decided to enter this contest, is that with technology, if artificial intelligence takes over organic intelligence, what does that lead to human civilization? Now, I don't ask you to believe it, but just listen to the facts. If you look at, again, this is not my area of expertise, but from the agricultural revolution to the industrial revolution, it's 8,000 years. And as that moved into the time when the man walked on the moon, and then the World Wide Web and so forth, time lapses can get shorter and shorter and shorter, which means the technology and the ability to make things happen in a quick manner, without a question, is happening right now. So you can't deny that. So let's take artificial intelligence. Most people say yes, but the computer will always need man. The computer will always need human to input this data. Yes, true, but that's because the computer has never been able to be creative like man or human. Sorry, like it's human. I just meant man or woman. But it has never had the ability to have the brain power, per se, of the human. Well, guess what? By 2015, the computer finally surpasses the brain power of a mouse now. They said, the early bird gets the worm, but the second mouse gets the cheese. But if you look at this, okay, brain power of a mouse not that good, but that's actually a little scary because the mouse, if the spring got hurt in traffic, sometimes the mouse will back up and rethink of a different plan to go. So when a computer gets the ability to deprogram itself for the moment and figure out another route, even if it's that of a mouse, that means that's progress from where we were before. I got something else for you. By 2023, the computer finally passes the brain power of a human. This is hardcore facts based off of the advancement of technology. And what does that mean? That's not the scary part. By 2045, the computer has finally surpassed the brain power of all humankind combined together. And there was a doctor, I think it was Kurzweil, he theorized that this would be called singularity. This is when you have Transformers and iRobot and stuff that we laugh and enjoy the movie. All this stuff will actually become reality in the sense of what technology is capable of. So with that said, I hope I've made you a more informed citizen about the advancement of technology. I hope that if nothing else, it gives you your own push to at least read up on it a little bit and kind of see where it is with you yourself. In closing, I'll leave you with this quote. The real danger is not that computers will begin to think like men, but it's that men will begin to think like computers. Thank you for your time.